Well, for more, we're joined by Eric Mandel, director of the Middle East Political Information Network, and Middle East analyst Micah Halpern. Gentlemen, welcome to you both. Micah, I'll start with you. As Arab states line up to attend the Bahrain Economic Summit on the Trump peace plan, won't it be pointless, do you think, if the Palestinians refuse to cooperate or accept whatever economic deals are hammered out? I mean, they've essentially said they can't be bribed or bought off.
Well, it's not about a bribe or buying off. What it is about setting the stage for development economically. And the reality is that they're proving that they're not ready quite yet to move ahead in this kind of a peace process. The reality is that from the sheer point of view of economics, getting all these people in the room to say, we're interested in supporting an economic solution to help the Palestinian people, that's a positive thing. It's not a bribe. It's a positive thing. These are not donations or contributions. These are economic incentives. This is investment. And I think it should be very, very positive. On the other hand, the fact that they choose not to come is showing their immaturity on this question. And that's sort of sad.
Eric, 7 Arab countries have so far confirmed their attendance in the Bahrain summit. Is this a win for President Trump and a failure to the Palestinian Authority?
I really do. I believe it is. I think it's surprising that Jordan and Egypt and Morocco have come on. The Gulf states we knew. It's almost sort of lining up the people in the Iran, pro and anti-Iran world. This should be a great thing for the Palestinian people in theory, but it's the worst thing for a corrupt Palestinian Authority, because the Palestinians really should replicate what the Israelis did 100 years ago, create the institutions of state of law, freedom of speech, freedom of press. They have none of that at this point of time. And what I think the most important thing that is coming out of this is all of these nations have come out, is they're basically telling the Palestinians, we are not going to be held hostage anymore to your unreasonable demands. And if you want to advance the peace process, the Palestinians know that they cannot have the ultimate veto.
We learned late today that U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo won't attend the Bahrain conference. His absence and the absence of other, representatives of other countries, is that a sign that we shouldn't expect much out of this summit?
Well, this is a first step,
right?
No matter what. And I think we in the West always want to have a quick answer, nanoseconds. And in this part of the world, I think we need to do it a little slower. Pompeo also has, I think, maybe resents the fact that he's been cut out of dealing here in the Middle East, because of Jason Greenblatt and Jared Kushner. And so it's not surprising that he's not there. But this is really just a first step.
Michal, let's continue to talk about who is going to be there. These Arab countries that already confirmed their attendance, just recently, some of their leaders reiterated that they will not support any kind of political solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict that the Palestinians will not agree to, which means that they support the two-state solution based on the 1967 borders with East Jerusalem as a future Palestinian capital. And yet we know that the Trump peace plan will not speak in these old terms and old definitions. So how do you reconcile that? Is that mainly lip service of Arab leaders to the Palestinians, or are they lying to the Trump administration?
Well, there are two things going on. The first is we don't actually know what's in the peace plan, and I think that's important, an important caveat as we analyze what's happening so far. The second thing is important to realize that the leaders that are attending and the countries that are attending actually have a different orientation than simply the Palestinian political agenda. They have an agenda which is much broader, and that agenda is obviously an anti-Iranian agenda, and they need the United States for that. So it's not lip service. It's actually paying the piper, so to speak. The United States wants this to happen. They're going to happen. The Palestinians are proving once again how less relevant or how irrelevant they are in the larger picture of the Middle East when they step aside here. And that's a problem. Whether it be a political issue or whether it be a financial issue or an economic issue, the reality is that from the sheer point of view of politics and power, by not attending or by saying, I won't do this, they're just marginalizing themselves from their own constituents, from the people who want to support them. And that's deeply troubling in terms of trying to create a solution.
But Micah, don't you think, though, the economics of the plan, if they're proven to be true, that the Palestinians would get, some sort of a number of economic benefits out of it, don't you think that's a good thing for them, or do they want just the land and that's it?
Well, the problem is that they're locked into this concept of a political solution. Deal with me, 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 me. Only by dealing with me will we solve this problem. That's not how the Trump administration is focusing on this anymore. They're trying to focus on the idea that says, we can't really put the two of you together, Israel and the Palestinians, so let's try to improve, at least in the Adam Smith concept of having a rising tide, which raises all ships.
Well,
and when
Micah,
that happens...
Micah, we got to run for the second to get to the break, but we're going to have you and Eric Mandel back after we take this quick break here.
Let's bring back Middle East analyst Micah Halpern and Eric Mandel, director of the Middle East Political Information Network. Eric, let's start to talk about the Israeli opposition. For them, a new round of Israeli elections, of course, is a big opportunity, especially for the Meretz Party and the Labour Party, the Oslo Accord coalition that did not perform so well in the April elections. And now we're hearing all these kinds of mergers and, talks of different leaders, potential leaders to lead these parties in order to change their position and maybe attract more votes.
Right.
That's not unusual. That's only, natural. But what about the idea of the Palestinian Authority working behind the scenes, trying to make their influence on elections in Israel?
So there's nothing wrong with Israeli Arabs, or as they refer to themselves now as Palestinian citizens of Israel, merging with Jewish Israeli citizens. However, a Palestinian Authority, which is trying to influence an election in Israel, basically another country, more of an enemy than a friend at this point of time, it should trouble us all. Think about it in the United States. Right now, we are so troubled about Russian interference in an American election, a Palestinian Authority interference in an Israeli election, considering that 76% of Palestinian citizens of Israel say they don't think it will ever be a democracy as long as this is a Jewish state. So that should be very troubling.
So do you think that the political candidates in Israel are sort of waiting for the Trump Middle East peace plan to be rolled out so they can make that a campaign issue in the run-up to September?
I don't think that's going to be the primary thing here. The problem here is the electorate in Israel is a center-right electorate. Blue and white, even when the annexation discussions came out with Friedman, didn't say or condemn that at all. They basically said it fits in with what's there, because what's there from their perspective, if you look at a non-politicized view of international law, is Israel has legal rights over the Green Line, and so annexing something that's needed defensively is nothing that should be beyond the pale.
Micah, I want to ask you about one of the issues that will, of course, play into these election campaigns and also the talks of a future coalition in Israel when the time arrives, and that is Prime Minister Netanyahu's legal issues. Member of Knesset Miki Zohar from the Likud party, he has been trying to push the Israeli parliament to pass the immunity law. He says it's not about protecting the prime minister from indictment. It's about protecting every lawmaker in the Israeli Knesset. But he talked to our anchor, Nurit Ben, today. And here's what he told Nurit when he was asked about Netanyahu's legal status.
If the voters will come to this election and will say, again, we trust the prime minister, we don't think he did nothing wrong, this will say something to the justice system. And this is why I hope that all of the people of Israel that wants Benjamin Netanyahu as their prime minister will come and vote again to Benjamin Netanyahu, and even more people will vote to Benjamin Netanyahu, because this is something that could be a big statement for us.
So, Micah, do you think that Miki Zohar has a point there, that if the citizens of Israel re-elect Prime Minister Netanyahu again, it means that, maybe he's done nothing wrong?
No, the legal system is independent of the political system, and that's important to recognize, though it is a pipe dream from his point of view. The reality, though, is, and this is something the legal system has to recognize, if you're going to indict, charge, and prosecute the prime minister, it must be a slam dunk. It can't be a question mark. And if the people already have the question mark on it, it's entirely possible that the question mark is there on the indictment also. You can't fail when you try to indict the prime minister. If you do, it does tremendous damage to the justice system. And I don't just mean the prosecution. I mean the entire judicial system is in challenge. So you need to make certain, if that's going to go ahead, if they're going to go ahead and prosecute, regardless of whether or not the public is behind the prime minister or not, you must be certain that this is going to be an absolute conviction, not on one, not on two, but on every single one of the charges. And that is a big question mark.
Micah Halpern, Eric Mandel, thank you both for your time here today.
A pleasure.